This is from Axel, Susie, and Son. We are so grateful that all of you could be here today, and Morgan would be thrilled. We often talked about what she wanted for her party, but never really finished planning it, always thinking and hoping we had more time. She loved spending time here and enjoyed catching up with family every year. Together, we have made this a great commemoration of her life. Morgan was the first of 8 cousins born in 1970. We will now have a few words from 4 of the cousins. Heather?
As some of you know, I spent most of my summers growing up in Door County and out west in Sheridan, Wyoming. Sadly, I missed growing up with this pack. Some of my favorite memories were meeting Susie and spending time with her and her family on the beach. I remember meeting Axel, Lulu, Eric, and Sonny and feeling joyful knowing we were building relationships with our cousins of all ages and how nice it was. And I remember when we started spending more time together. It was the big golf tournament, you know, the one where everyone either turned 70 or we were born in 1970. Well, somehow, I don't know how it happened, but Stephen put Morgan and I on the people who were 70, and so we got to play with the likes of Dirty Jane and Susie, and it was a lot of fun. As I got to know Morgan, it became very clear that we were connecting like carefree children at summer camp, not awkward adult chit-chat. What a gift Morgan was to me. She gave me the gift of taking a risk. 2 of my favorite things about Morgan are she loves a good story and she loves a good joke. 2 summers ago, Morgan and I were sitting over there on the east porch, and Andrew Keller's children came running at top speed towards the house, and we were both struggling to remember his son's name. And in good fashion, I waged a bet, offering her either $100, real money, not Monopoly, or a steak dinner if her answer was right. As it turns out, the joke was on me, and before I knew it, we were in the car, headed to the Algonquin for a couple of French dips and a couple of pina coladas on me. So in an effort to support Morgan from afar, I would try to call her or send her silly cards to make her laugh. One of the gifts I think that we all share in common as Bixby's is a good sense of humor. One summer, my son Bixby asked me why Stephen and Ben were crying as they said their goodbyes, and I explained to him that we miss people terribly when we leave and there's no guarantees that we will see them again. Speaking of no guarantees, Morgan, you still owe me a lunch. And as I run to you each summer when I see you, I'm counting on you running to me when you see me again. And just a little quote from my favorite author. There are no happy endings. Endings are the saddest part. So give me a happy middle and a very happy start. Morgan was a big part of my happy middle. But it was a true story that we did have a photograph taken here, the professional photographer Susie Lambeth. And I will have this up for auction tomorrow. If you want to frame it, you can put it over your kitchen sink or your fireplace. I'm Jilly Munson. It's as simple as this. We were little girls together, and we were supposed to be old ladies together. Shit. Ever since Chris texted me the morning she died, the story's changed, and it sucks. I can still hear her sort of high-pitched voice in my ear, usually paired with a giggle. Actually, Sonny, you sound so much like her. It's amazing. It's the voice I always hear when I read her texts. I'm sort of dreading not hearing it anymore. The last time I got to see her in person was a year ago, here, this weekend. Boy, she was classic Morgan. Full of witty, can you believe that one? Can you believe this one? She was holding court, and I was loving it. Like many of you, I'm also was desperately afraid, wishing for the year to pass quickly and her to be here tonight. Morgan was my person growing up. My BFF in the magical way a Bixby cousin can be. 1/12 of a year, every year. It's amazing what 4 weeks can make to a lifetime. August 1st we arrived, and 4 weeks later we left with summer feet, stories of leaving our sisters at Lover's Rock, the twisted joy of getting those same sisters to swing us on the hammock without reciprocating, memories of peering in the pool room windows after our bedtimes to watch our parents party. We just spent a lot of time on that subject. A lot of Kraft mac and cheese and noodles in our bellies. I wanted to take a moment to thank Susie for being my co-mom those summers and for being Fruit Loop permissive. That was so much better than Carol's grape nuts. There was also the annual, we hate each other, let's be best friends with the other sisters for about 3 or 4 days. Thanks, Axel, for those days. We were good together for a while. We moved between apartments, hosted dinner parties with written invitations, place cards, and likely signature drinks quite a few of you probably had to endure. Took trips up 90 some odd steps for Copes with Aunt Stella, skinny dipped in Aunt Ginny's pool, and created all the magic of phone-free summer can get pulled. I think even my first boozy drink was with her. Tyson, you too. Grape soda plus rum in a closet at Susie's house. Remember this? What we were thinking. As we became teens, college age, our worlds actually diverted. She married and had kids years before me. And I, meanwhile, went to Colorado and California. And our worlds were so different that, quite honestly, we never talked about it. I suspect we didn't even know what to do with one another for a few years in there. So much was different about us that we actually missed each other's weddings, which is kind of amazing. But in the last bunch of years, even before her diagnosis, we started coming back together. Sometime last year, we daydreamed together about how we wanted to be the Aunt Nancy, Aunt Ginny of our era. Not sure we would have eaten hot dogs out of a toaster or hoop swings at such great quantities, but I always thought we would have that time together, and anticipating not having it sort of sucks. Few have made me laugh the way Morgan did. She goes into the next life knowing many of my secrets. I'm ever grateful that we've been in touch for the last couple of years. Axel asked for fun stories of her, and I'm going to leave you with one that's one of my best memories of her. Morgan loved Uncle Ralph's boat. The engine smoked and coughed worse than any of our aunts and uncles who've ever had emphysema, and the entire thing scared the living daylights out of me. Morgan loved it and loved driving it. I would have happily stayed unlicensed to avoid that thing. So one day Aunt Ginny offered, in her typical generosity, offered to allow us to lunch on her account at Lake George Club. A treat, even at 10 plus years old, and we knew to take her up on it. I think it was lunch in the grotto. I know it was always hot dogs and grilled cheese and Shirley Temples. At any rate, we didn't have a way to get there. So Morgan said, let's take Uncle Ralph's boat. It took her a lot to get me in the boat that day. I gave it my best. I'm terrified. Do I have to? Can't Harvey 3 or Chris Smith take us in a truck or something? But she was so excited, and Morgan was my North Star, so off we went. I remember bouncing down the lake, as one does in a mid-Lake George day, and the boat practically bursting at the seams. All the time, I was thinking about, I was terrified. And it's really, really long way to Lake George Club. The entire time, I was thinking, how am I going to throw her over my shoulder and swim her out of here when this whole thing just disintegrates? Morgan was classic Morgan. I can still see her in my mind's eye, standing at the front of the boat, with the wind in her hair, laughing, smiling with glee, and being right. We made it there, we made it back, just fine. I love that image of her in the front of the boat. And so I might eventually lose her voice in my ear, but I'm never going to forget that image. I feel like that leader's stance was the hallmark of our fight with cancer. Now, I know not every day over the last few years was like that. I got some, I'm very tired, and this is really hard texts. But all in all, I think she was up front leading us through this, cackling with humor, terrifying us, and just making us smile. Just as she was last summer this weekend. I will miss her a ton. To Susie, Axel, Sunny, Morgan's kids, and Chris, I'm so sorry for your loss. It must be unimaginably hard. I'm not sure if there's an afterlife, but I'm sure I hope there is one. I get to spend it listening to say to me, but maybe not riding around any contraption she picks. Thank you for listening.
My name's Tyson Doherty. I miss you, Morgan. I love you, Morgan. Remember the kiss we shared on the porch of apartment 1? You stood with bare feet. I stood on tippy toes. Cousins, we cared not. I miss you, Morgan. Thank you. When you moved to Bolton in '83, you helped ground me. I was an untethered kite at the end of a light year string. Our 8th grade friendship at BCS, Bolton Central School, reeled me in. I miss you, Morgan. You radiate kindness. You radiate love. You radiate appreciation. You embody. We miss you, Morgan. We really.
I'm Blair. I'm the baby. I'm always pulling up the rear. Morgan was always leading. Many years ago, when she first started organizing the 1970 get-together, she stated that the rest of us should cover her babysitting bill. I asked why, because you're the oldest, and she said no, because I have 4 children and the rest of you aren't even in serious relationships yet, and you need to get going. She was right. When cancer was detected, the path she was given was always difficult and uncompromising, but at every turn she would show her spirit and her courage. When she decided to inform all continually through the little brown chicken on social media, I was intrigued by her decision. She felt the process would allow her to live as normally as possible and spend time with people in the way she always had. Time had become important to her. Rather than focus on cancer, Morgan used that time to talk about how each of her children were doing, a recent kayak trip with Suze, creative, thoughtful conversation with Axel, or a time when Sonny made her laugh out loud. She loved you all so. Thank you to Chris, whose love and support propped her up and allowed her to shine. You were a good teammate, and we are all so grateful. Morgan did so many sweat equity projects in her years, convinced that it made Mohican Point better, and the experience was important to continuing engagement and growing family relationships. It was also a way in which she protected the legacy of Mohican Point, a job she took very seriously. In her recent years, she would say, "I won't be here tomorrow as I have treatment, but I'll be back later in the week." Even more recently, she bought herself a cart so she could sit on it and still paint, as she knew her stamina was waning. Who does that? Morgan did. At the end of the project, she would ask, "Did we do enough?" And the answer is that she did more than enough to improve the place and inspire many. What do you say to somebody who gives you the gift of inspiration to so many? I guess you say thank you and tip your hat to a life well lived. The courageous way she handled her diagnosis and how she lived her life will always be inspiration to me and all of our crew. Morgan had ideas on how she would like to be visited and remembered, so the next time you grab a pizza and invite others to the point, or take someone out on this glorious lake, or do some work around these welcoming grounds, look for her. I suspect she'll be there with a smile. If you listen closely and you're lucky, you might even hear a laugh in the wind. Morgan's strength, leadership, and courage live on. May her life's example and soul continue to inspire us all. Thank you.
Morgan would be thrilled to be catching up with all of you because this was her favorite place to be. Thank you, Morgan, for being such a wonderful part of our lives. And now, on to the party.